A landlord can collect $100 a month in pure cash flow from a rental property, barely enough to cover a nice dinner out, and still walk away wealthier than someone earning six figures at a job. That's not a typo, and it's not a trick question. It's how real estate actually works, and almost nobody explains it correctly. Most people think real estate makes money one way: buy low, sell high, pocket the difference. That's not wrong exactly, it's just such a small piece of the picture that focusing on it alone will make you completely miss why real estate has created more millionaires in America than almost any other asset class. So today, we're breaking down the real mechanics behind how property actually builds wealth, and why the number sitting in a landlord's bank account each month tells you almost nothing about how much money they're actually making. Let's start with the part everyone gets obsessed with: rent. A landlord buys a property, rents it out, and collects a check every month. Simple enough. But here's what trips people up. Rental income by itself is often a surprisingly weak source of profit. On a typical rental property in 2026, monthly cash flow after the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance might land somewhere around $100 to $300 a month. That's it. After all the risk, the tenant screening, the 2 a.m. phone calls about a broken water heater, a few $100s a month. If you judge this investment purely on the cash hitting the landlord's account, you'd assume real estate is a mediocre way to build wealth, barely better than leaving your money in a savings account. And that assumption would be completely wrong, because cash flow is only one of four separate ways this asset makes money simultaneously. Most people only ever see the first one and think that's the whole story. Here's the second, and it's the one that quietly does most of the heavy lifting: leverage. When you buy a stock, you generally pay the full price. Want $1,000 of Apple stock? You pay $1,000. When you buy real estate, the rules are completely different. A landlord can put down 20% on a property and control 100% of it. Buy a $300,000 property with $60,000 down, and you now control the entire asset, all $300,000 of it, using debt to cover the rest. Debt that, as we'll get to, someone else is largely paying off for you. Here's why that matters so much. If that property appreciates by just 2% in a year, which is roughly the national average right now, that's $6,000 of appreciation. $6,000 on a $60,000 investment. That's a 10% return on your actual cash from appreciation alone, even though the property itself only grew by 2%. This is the part that breaks people's brains the first time they really understand it. You're not earning returns on the full value of the property. You're earning returns on your own money while using someone else's money, the bank's, to control an asset 4 or 5 times bigger than your actual investment. Nothing else the average person has access to lets you do that legally at that kind of scale with an asset this stable. But leverage isn't even where the story ends. There's a third mechanism running quietly every single month, one that almost never shows up when people talk about rental income. The tenant is paying down the landlord's debt. Every mortgage payment is split into two parts: interest, which is basically the cost of borrowing, and principal, which is the actual loan balance shrinking. On a typical mortgage, hundreds of dollars a month go toward principal paydown. And here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. It's not the landlord's money doing that. It's the tenant's rent check. The renter is in effect slowly buying the landlord's property for them one payment at a time, without ever holding the deed. So now, stack this up. A landlord might be pocketing only $100 a month in visible cash flow, but at the same time, they might be building $400 a month in actual wealth being created just from principal paydown, funded entirely by rent. That's $500 a month in actual wealth being created, and only 20% of it ever shows up as cash in their pocket. If you only look at that $100 number, you think this is a weak investment. If you look at the full picture, you realize the landlord's net worth is quietly climbing by $6,000 a year, and they haven't lifted a finger beyond collecting rent and paying a mortgage. And there's a fourth piece stacked on top of all of this, one the government built directly into the tax code: depreciation. The IRS allows real estate investors to deduct a portion of a property's value every year as a paper loss, even while the property is very likely increasing in actual market value in the real world. It's one of the only situations in the entire tax system where an asset can be gaining real value and losing value on paper at the exact same time, and both of those things work in the investor's favor simultaneously. That paper loss can offset rental income, sometimes wiping out the taxes owed on it entirely, even in a year where the landlord's net worth objectively grew by tens of thousands of dollars. So here's the real formula: cash flow, appreciation, debt paydown through rent, and tax advantages through depreciation. Four separate wealth-building mechanisms all running at the same time on the same asset, funded largely by someone else's money and someone else's monthly payment. That's the actual engine. The rent check is just the most visible part of a machine that's doing far more work behind the scenes than anyone watching from the outside can see. This is also exactly why real estate can feel deceptively boring to people just getting started, and why so many give up too early. They look at their bank account after the first year, see a few $1,000s of cash flow, maybe less than they'd have earned working a part-time job on weekends, and assume it wasn't worth the hassle of dealing with tenants and repairs. What they're not seeing is the mortgage balance quietly shrinking every single month, the property value inching upward year after year, and a tax return that looks nothing like it would for a regular salary. None of that shows up as a deposit notification on your phone. It shows up years later when you sell the property or refinance and suddenly realize how much wealth was accumulating the entire time in places you weren't watching. It's also worth being honest about the other side of this. Leverage cuts both ways. The same debt that multiplies your gains when a property appreciates can just as easily multiply your losses if values drop, or if a property sits vacant for months while you're still covering the mortgage out of your own pocket. Rising insurance costs, maintenance surprises, and higher interest rates have all made this game noticeably tighter over the past couple of years than it was a decade ago. National vacancy rates have actually climbed to some of the highest levels in years, as new construction has caught up with demand in many markets, which means the easy assumption that a property will always rent out quickly and always appreciate on schedule simply isn't guaranteed anymore. Real estate isn't a guaranteed win. It's a powerful set of mechanics that reward patience and discipline, and punish people who overextend themselves chasing appreciation that never shows up. But when it's done with discipline, the math is hard to argue with. A modest, unremarkable rental property, generating a modest, unremarkable amount of monthly cash flow, can still be quietly building more real wealth every single year than most people realize is possible, simply because four separate financial engines are running underneath the surface at the exact same time: a small trickle of cash flow, a leveraged bet on appreciation, a tenant slowly paying off someone else's mortgage, and a tax code quietly working in the investor's favor the whole time. That $100 a month was never the point. It was just the part you could actually see. If this changed the way you think about how real estate actually builds wealth, subscribe, hit like, and drop a comment telling us which business or industry you want us to break down next. Your suggestions genuinely shape what we cover.